Stand by.
Oh, here we go.
Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome to Tuesday. It is NPU Live. My name is Keri Rodriguez.
And I'm Tim Langen.
And look at this, technical proficiency growing every single day. What more can you ask from this mom and this dad coming to you live from Boston, Massachusetts. On
Seriously, not bad for a guy that just his computer skills leaving Catholic school was Oregon Trail.
You know, it's incredible what you can learn over a 6-week period. And we'll be talking about that today. We'll be talking a lot about education with Maya Frank from the Black Wall Street Times and Keri Gu from Grade Schools.
Get some wicked smart people on today.
Wicked smart. You know, we're gonna do some learning today. Oh my goodness, this is gonna be quite a broadcast. I can tell already, but we're so excited that you're with us. Also, Mira Brown from Prepared Parents will join us. And we need her guidance.
You do need her guidance.
And of course, Prepared Parents, you can visit at preparedforsuccess.org or preparedparents.org because we kept screwing up the URL. So why not?
We did.
Oh yeah.
I think they did two, don't they?
They added another one.
A third one?
No, they had two.
Oh, they have two. Right. Okay.
Yeah. It was a recent addition. We'll get
okay. Either way, sign up for preparedforsuccess.org. It takes like 10 seconds.
It does.
Less if it's autofill.
And then you get an email from Mira
every day, personally addressed to you.
Yeah, and if you're like the rest of us, although Mira tells us, you know, we should not be checking email as soon as we open our eyes. We should actually wake up and leave bed. You know, maybe do something spiritual before.
Listen, I get an email in the morning and I see Mira's name on it. I'm reading.
Yeah, so it's not so bad. Even if you have not mastered the skill of getting out of bed before checking your email, you can start your day with Mira.
Or workaholism. Depends what you want to call it. You know.
What day of the week is it anyway? We're not really so sure. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
That's right. Just another day to work.
Tim, what's in the news today?
Well, let's go through the numbers like we go through every day, guys. U.S. cases for COVID-19 right now are at 988,469 and almost a million and 56,253 deaths.
Yeah, and those are the ones that are currently reported.
That's right.
Fear that number is going to go up.
Go up, exactly.
Once we verify. Yeah, and what's really frightening is now, you know, as we've been talking about, we are learning more and more about the virus every single day. The CDC just released some additional guidelines of different symptoms that you can be looking for, which hopefully, you know, if you're experiencing some of these symptoms, you should be able to report this to a doctor, make it easier for you to get a test. Yeah, it's stunning, you know, especially the chills we're hearing a lot about.
Really?
Yeah, if you're experiencing chills, like just absolutely like uncontrollable shaking, that can be another symptom, in addition to fever, in addition to congestion, all of these other things that we have talked about traditionally being symptoms of COVID-19. There are some new suggestions. We're going to put the link to the CDC up on our Facebook page.
Definitely.
Check it in the comments. So you can get the latest information from the experts. And really, as we always recommend on this program, trust the experts. Make sure that you are getting your facts from the CDC,
That's right.
From scientists, medical doctors. Those recommendations always right now to keep your mouth and your nose covered. Wear those masks. Here in Somerville, Massachusetts, where this broadcast originates from, now a $300 fine if you do not wear a mask in public. That's indoors, that's outdoors, that's anywhere. The police will stop you.
Indoor public places.
Indoor public places.
Yeah. I don't have to wear a mask in my fridge.
That's true. Thank you so much for that.
But you know what, though? I would, though, if I had to.
That's right.
I would, though, to keep you safe.
Absolutely. So indoor, outdoor, public places in our area, you're gonna want to make sure that you stay covered up because what we're trying to do is just maintain. You know, we're seeing some of our states start to open up. It's really time to start, you know, making sure that you exercise your best judgment, especially in some of those states where we're seeing, unfortunately, a lot of politics come into play.
That's right. So listen to the experts. Listen to your governor, unless your governor is in Indiana, Ohio, Iowa, the Dakotas, or if your president is the president of the United States.
Yes.
But anyway.
Goodness.
Just say.
You know, always, yeah, in President Governor Cuomo and President Governor Gavin Newsom.
Like him, you know, he needs to come up with some new cooking tips, though. That's what I need from him.
Who's Governor Cuomo?
Governor Cuomo.
Yeah, he does order some mean Chinese, too, by the way.
Oh, does he really?
Yes,
I'd like
he
to know the
does.
place. There's some
Yes.
good Chinese food places in New York.
What else is happening, Tim?
Lots going on. Let's get to some happy news here.
Yes.
Well, not happy news. I'm sorry. To really solve this problem, you know, one of the things people have talked about is testing and tracing. You know, tracing who has the virus and really doing those tests. So to do that, you need people. Okay, so you need people to actually do these and administer the tests and trace. So they just did a study, and unfortunately, right now across, they did 41 out of 50 states, including Puerto Rico and DC. And they found that overall, on the low end, you need 100,000 workers to do this tracing nationwide, and on the far end, 300,000.
And the tracing happens when somebody tests positive,
right,
and then they disclose, okay, who have I been in contact
exactly.
with? We need workers who can actually follow up with all of those people you've been in contact
right.
with to see who's been infected, who is symptomatic, who's not symptomatic. So we can kind of determine how the virus works.
That's right.
Where we can anticipate we might see flares so that we can start getting ahead of this a little bit.
Yeah.
But again, 100,000 to 300,000 workers needed to actually do that.
So
to make those phone calls.
So let's say middle ground. I'll cut you some slack. Say we need 200,000 workers. Okay, 200,000 workers. Right now in 41 states, we only have 7,324. With a plan to increase to 35,382.
So we get some work to do.
We get some work to do, guys. Got a lot of work to do. Talking to you a lot today, but I should be talking to them a lot today.
Well, I have to say, here in Massachusetts, you know, we have been kind of a test case for how that tracing works.
Yeah.
So if you're watching us and you're in the Commonwealth, please make sure you pick up the phone. The governor has actually worked with some of our cell phone companies to make sure that when it comes up on your phone, it doesn't say blocked or restricted. It actually says COVID-19 task force. So when you see that, don't get freaked out. Pick up the phone because it's probably a contact tracer trying to make sure
that's great.
You're okay because you may have been in contact with somebody who has reported that they have COVID-19. So that's how that's going to work. That's going to be another behavioral change.
Yeah.
I don't know about you folks. I don't pick up the phone even when I know it is. So
wow, really?
Yeah, I'm not. Text me.
I was wondering what was up with that.
Text me, FaceTime me. And especially if I don't know you. Yeah.
Wow.
You can go to
wow.
voicemail.
You're gonna be on red.
That's right.
That's right. She'll leave you on red.
Are we gonna have that discussion here?
Not here.
On red?
I can tell you. I know what discussion we're gonna have though. I want to share with everyone how I'm preparing for this.
Continuing to prepare.
Continuing to prepare. Always preparing for the pandemic. Things get rough.
I had a little moment yesterday.
Had to feed my family for at least as long as this might last.
So let's talk through why you felt that way, because it was really, there was a lot of stories. There are a lot of stories right now talking about disruption in the food chain.
Yep. That's right. They're closing meat plants, meat processing plants, which are, so, and I will tell you, it is very tough right now to get really good meat.
Yes. And I want to shout out to our friends in Detroit. We've been covering quite a bit the conversation about the fact that it's tough to just get meat that is not expired in places like Detroit. So if you're not, living next door to a bougie, Whole Foods, and you might be out in the hood, it's hard to get good meat. Like that is, not just getting food, but getting food that's going to keep you healthy is really a struggle right now, which I don't think a lot of folks are talking about. We'll see that in the news next week, because usually families are talking about it first, and then we start to see these things enter the conversation. But, feeling as parents, number one, first and foremost, it always flashes to the front. Like, how am I going to take care of these kids if the food chain is disrupted? So how did you handle it?
Well, it might have been triggered when you said, babe, I don't think you have enough pasta for the pandemic. I said, well, That's a good point.
Pasta's a staple.
You need that pasta.
Rice and beans.
You need that pasta.
And all of our boys, like they love some rice and beans. So
Oof.
we have some big, like literal sacks. We went to a bodega in Union Square.
My boys have not experienced rice and beans, and now you have broken that seal. Now they crave rice and beans.
That's right.
So first of all, you talked about meat. I went on Instacart yesterday. I went a little bit crazy. You talked about meat. I did not get the turkey burgers I ordered today, which is okay. So instead of meat, there's always this is not a meat substitute. This is an actual meat.
It's actual meat.
There's always Spam. Always got plenty of Spam.
The government's substitute for meat, Spam.
That's right. Shout out to any delegates in Hawaii, where Spam is they consume more Spam in Hawaii than anywhere else. Yeah. So I've 8 more cans of Spam to go along with my many cans of Spam.
What else?
I've got Trail Mix. That was your recommendation here. Yeah. Trail Mix, nice. And I didn't need to. I got the M&M flavor.
You need to. How do you make Trail Mix?
I've got it in my life. I also got, because one thing you don't want is me hungry in the morning. That's right. Big box of oatmeal. I actually got a couple of these, not realizing I already have 3 of these. And that's a 52 packets variety pack. Apples and cinnamon, maple and brown sugar, and cinnamon and spice.
We also stocked up on peanut butter.
Oh, I got lots of peanut butter. I've got, I bought my first bag of sugar, 50 pounds of sugar, because I was told I should get that. And I finally got
50 pounds of flour, too.
I'm sorry, 50 pounds of flour.
And sugar.
And sugar. I got lots of sugar. I got salt. I got pepper. I finally got my deliveries of ramen noodles, by the way, because last time they sent me one little packet the size of my phone.
Making one packet of ramen
I think they sent me one packet with 48 noodles in it. Mm-hmm. I wanted one case of 48 packets of ramen. So now I got 2 cases.
Like if things go south, a couple of packs of ramen noodles and a can of Spam, like that
lasts one. I mean, 2 packets of ramen noodles lasted me a week in college.
2 packets of ramen.
The salt in there, man. It's like you're in bomb.
Crazy.
But listen.
Little can of mixed vegetables, little ramen noodle, little Spam. Mix that up. Oof. There you go. That's dinner.
Chinese food night. So listen, guys, if you have tips and feedback you want to share with us, if you think I should panic buy anything else, maybe there's I don't know, maybe you have a tip. Maybe, Tim, you need some of this if you can't get to the supermarket.
With the caveat being, please don't tell Tim to buy any more mayonnaise, because holy crap.
I only have 4 jars. Whatever.
Yeah, like large,
again,
not just jars, but like big, like industrial
jars.
With
the condiment privilege. There you go. Those people with that mayonnaise. Here we go again.
Caucasianese. We're gonna drown in it over here.
Anyway,
don't tell Tim to buy more mayonnaise.
Send it to info@npunion.org. info@npunion.org with any tips, topics, things I should eat.
Or folks, take a picture of your stockpile. We're nosy. We want to see what you bought.
I love to know what people are eating all the time.
I want to know what people are eating. What did you make? And we want to see your stockpile so we can steal your ideas.
And also, too, if you have any ideas for guests, and we have some great guests this week again, tune in tomorrow for Landon Mascarenhas and Cassandra from XL and Ed. Thursday, we have Virginia Walden Ford and Peter Cook. That's that episode.
That's going to be great. The Mighty South.
I don't know if we have enough gigs on the internet for those 2 together. And then Friday, we're going to close it out with Sharonda Knott Dawson. I can't wait. It's going to be a great time. And now, I can't wait for our next guest.
Yes, I've been missing her. Mira Brown from Prepared Parents joining us live from Austin, Texas. Mira, how are you? How is Texas this morning? How's Austin?
You thought I was excited.
Your window.
I thought I was excited about getting 2 big cases of ramen. But seeing Mira for the first time in 4 days, this is it.
Mira, how are you?
It's been too long. I will say, Tim, Ben came back from Costco with this, right? We don't go Costco's like my husband's favorite place in the whole wide world, right? And so now we don't go as often, obviously. So he came back though with this, it's like bigger than our refrigerator thing of mayonnaise, and opens it, right? So now it's not shelf stable.
There are 4 of them. 4 of them.
And I was like, it's like bigger than our milk, like little milk supply. And so I have to literally move it out of the way every time. I have to just get a yogurt out for the kids or something. I mean, it's the most massive thing of mayonnaise I have ever seen.
Listen, when you're living off egg salad 6 months from now, so grateful they have that mayonnaise.
It's a lot of mayonnaise. I don't know. We'll see.
A lot of mayonnaise going on.
Did you all have a good weekend?
A picture of Ben's stockpile.
That's right.
Wow.
When we have him on the Dad for Dad show, we're going to focus on, I think we should focus on dad stockpiles.
I do think.
Hey, in fairness, he does all the grocery shopping. He goes, I mean, he always has. He goes to Costco. He cooks every night for us. And so no, I can complain about the massive thing of mayo, but I really shouldn't.
Right.
And I've got to say, you know, I was teasing Tim a little bit and, you know, put it up on Facebook.
Let's hear it.
You know, for Tim, you know, love is a verb, and look how he takes care of us.
For me, love is a jar of mayonnaise.
Yes.
Yeah.
So much. He's very worried that, you know, heaven forbid we should want mayonnaise and not be able
Not
to
have
get
it. That's right.
We have so many cans of canned potatoes. Last night I was like, I don't think I've ever purchased it.
I'm gonna be like the Bubba Gump of canned potatoes. How many different ways can you cook it? You can fry them.
You can make a soup. So last night we had a sausage potato soup that Ben made, and you can add kale if you can get kale. We were finally able to get kale for the first time in like 2 months, and it is delicious. So there's another way to make.
That is actually a Portuguese soup called calveird.
There you go.
Yeah.
And it's our favorite. I didn't make it. Let's be clear. Ben made it, and highly recommend it. It was so good.
Burnian soup, calveird. That's like a staple. That's if you get linguiça, a little spicy sausage. Oh,
well,
so yummy.
Jacqueline Bourgeois says, start a small garden. Funny you should mention that, Jacqueline. We actually ordered some small plants right now, and
growing them.
They're getting some sun on my ironing board by the window right now, Jacqueline.
In the city, and it's still a little cold, so we don't know what to do with the plants quite yet. Well, we do.
We do.
Put them near the window, and so maybe we'll take a picture of that. We want to see your stockpile, your small garden. What are you doing to keep healthy and take care of your
That's right.
But Tim is doing a great job.
That's
taking
right.
care of all of us. So.
Mira, what do you have for us today?
Too much to the heart.
I wanted to talk today about how to help our kids get into what's called the sweet spot of learning with something that is called I do, we do, you do. And this one came up organically, like most of our tips come up, just purely based on being home now, right? Being my kids, essentially sort of teacher's aide, helping my son sort of get through his schoolwork. And he's young, he's in kindergarten and all of that, but we've been hearing a lot of, or at least I've been hearing a lot of, I can't, or this is too hard, or just do it for me, or he'll sort of slump down, that look that I get, right? And he'll just sort of slump into his chair. And I think it's, you know, I think he misinterprets what that feeling, right, of like, this is hard for like, I'm not learning, and gives up. And then he gets frustrated and deflated. I get frustrated and frustrated, right? And want to just sort of like, can't understand, like, just try, just do it, you know? And so we end up in this sort of this cycle together. And it's mostly me and Gabe for many reasons. One, we spend our mornings together, and that's when we do a lot of his schoolwork. And two, we're very similar, and we do a lot of this. And so I was sharing this with my friend and sort of go-to educator at Summit Public Schools, Adam Carter, and he reminded me that he's like, Mira, remember there's a sweet spot of learning where what we're trying to learn isn't too difficult and isn't too easy. And I was just like, oh my gosh, of course, right? And so I wanted to share this because I actually think as parents, as we stepped into this role, this is super helpful for us just to be able to think about and to know. And then I have, bear with me for a couple of minutes, then I have sort of a practical thing and an example we can use it with. But essentially, that sweet spot is what educators and cognitive psychologists call the zone of proximal development, or ZPD for for short. And it was developed actually by a leading psychologist in the 1930s. So this is a long running thing that educators and psychologists have known about. And it's been built upon, like everything has, right, over the decades. In my last role at Summit Public Schools, we used to use this sort of phrase with kids. We would say, where do world-class athletes, brilliant writers, great leaders, legendary artists, and amazing young minds all go to realize their highest potential, their maximum potential? They get into their zone. And we would say that, and it was a sort of, especially with younger, like high schoolers would roll their eyes, and younger, even middle schoolers would love it. But I mean, it really is getting into your own zone, getting into the zone. And that's when they're really learning, right, and growing at their maximum potential, because they're challenged just enough and to like learn that new skill, but they're not pushed past what they're ready for, right? And so that's why it's called, right, their zone, their ZPD, or their sweet spot of learning. But what's, I think, important to know is that you don't just sort of like end up in a zone, right? You don't just like end up there by yourself, especially when you're trying to learn something new. They need, or kids need, the support of an adult, right? Whether it's a parent, a teacher, a mentor, sort of help them through that, right? And guide them through that. And so at school, teachers call this, essentially, this is what you'll hear a lot of teachers say, or teachers will call this scaffolding. And it's really hard. And it takes teachers years of experience and expertise to find just the right scaffolds, just the right supports to put in place for each child. Because again, it's different for every single child, right? To find that sweet spot of learning where they're being pushed, but not being pushed too much. And so that's what I want to talk about today, because there is something we can do as parents very similar to what teachers do in the classroom, since we are all home together right now. And this is what's called I do, we do, you do. And I think it's going to sound very familiar because we use this, right? I think as parents in our everyday lives, but we can use this right now in helping our kids with their schoolwork and their learning. And so I do, right? That's where you're modeling it. You're doing it and your kid is actively watching. You're modeling the steps. You're modeling asking questions. We do is that guided. You're doing it with your child. And then you do, right, is you're taking a step back. You're letting your kid run. You're letting your kid be independent and try it out. You're not disappearing. You're there with your kid. And I think that's super important. And you're certainly not standing over your kid's sort of shoulder and just like watching them to make sure they do it right. But you're there supporting them. And so I wanted to give you an example of like what that can look like. And I decided to use, it's kind of a silly example, but it works, which is trains. My kids I have 2 young boys, they love trains. So let's say you get a sort of model train, set an example, and you need to put it together. And Adam used this one, and it was very helpful for me to think about this. So you get this model train, your kid is super excited, they're motivated, they can't wait to play with it and build it. You have all the kits, you have the supplies, right? You have the glue stick, screwdriver, everything, the resources and everything you need. But your kid can't just like pull it out of the box and like hold a glue stick and a screwdriver and they look at you and like, how do I do this? What do I do now? And I've never built a model train myself, right? And so this is the I do. This is where you go and you find the expert. So in this case, the expert's not you. It wouldn't be me. The expert could be a YouTube video that you're watching together, right? Someone who's very skilled at building it. And you're watching it with your kid. It's active listening, right? And asking, okay, what did they do first? Or, hey, Gabriel, what tools do you see are most important? Okay, let's make sure we write that down, right? Like you're modeling the ability to learn from an expert for your child while your child is sort of actively listening and engaging, right? So that's the first step. Then you might say, okay, like we watched this video together, let's pull it out, let's do it, right? And so this is where you're going step by step through the instructions, for example, of the train with your kid. They're there with you. Now you're not doing it, your kid could be holding the glue stick, you're holding the screwdriver, you're sort of toggling over it together. Maybe you're going back to the YouTube video, like, oh gosh, I can't remember this. This happens a lot with me. Like, I can't remember the step of this. Let's watch it together. Do you remember, Gabriel, what we were supposed to do next, right? So there's a lot of back and forth there. That's right. That's that guided work you're doing with them. It's a lot of potentially failing together, trying to figure it out together, problem solving together, but you are there with them and you're doing it together. And then the last step, right, is time for your kid to take over. This is sort of the first step towards independence and self-direction. So now you're still with them, but maybe you're in the background, maybe you're making lunch, you're working while they're on the floor, like working on it together. You're keeping an eye, right? This is not just like leaving the room and saying, good luck, kid. You're keeping an eye on what's happening, and you're there to help when they need you, because they know now to ask, like how to ask for help, right? And maybe they know how to go back to the YouTube video.
It's okay to check in and say, hey, is this right? I need you to remind me how to do this because you've made that okay for them.
But it's not exactly, but it's not do this for me, because you've now modeled, when I have a question, what do I do? Right, all of that. I think what's really important, and this one is super hard for me, we sort of talked about it before we went on air, which is don't jump in just because they're not doing it your way. And this is a really important one for type A parents like myself, who believe there's a right and a wrong way, because that making small mistakes, right, that actually is how we learn, right, is how we learn how to do it. And there's a difference though between not jumping in because they're not doing it exactly right the way you want them to do it, or you want them to build it, and stepping in when you start seeing frustration. Because, and this one was hard for me, and as I've been watching, after I had this conversation, I've been watching Gabriel much more closely, and I'm starting to see sort of like the difference between that like productive, I can see it in his eyes, I can see it in his body language, and then just like the pure frustration, this is not working, I don't know what I'm doing, because that's not sweet spot, that's not ZPD, that's like I'm on my way to giving up and I don't want to touch this anymore, and now I'm being pushed beyond what I'm ready for. And you want to sort of step in before that and go back to
we say, okay, like let's redirect, like let's go back and think about, okay, if we're feeling frustrated right now and you want to give up, well, what can we do instead? Like, who can we in with, who can we ask, how can we figure this out together, and maybe go to one of the previous levels where you can kind of...
And that's okay. And I think often I'm learning with Gabriel, like he's going to learn things when he is ready, and sometimes he needs to walk away, and that's my lesson to say, like, maybe he's not just giving up, maybe he just needs to walk away. And the truth is, a lot of times he will come back, and that's okay too, right? Because you don't learn anything when you're frustrated. That's not that feeling is actually not productive, and that's not when your brain is sort of switched on into a learning mode. That's when you are actually
as a grown-up, like, I need to feel my feelings sometimes so I can clear my head and start thinking logically. Because when we are mad and we're feeling those big feelings and feeling frustrated or angry or upset or any of those things, like, we have great coping skills, especially for our little guys that, might be, challenged with the ADHD and some of the other that, we have our wonderful kids with special needs that may be facing. Like, that's a coping strategy we teach them. Right. So you can do some of that. You don't have to give up, but if you need to cool down, that can be.
And a lot of times, right, and we've talked about this, like, kids rise to the occasion and they are able to move beyond that feeling, and they will become independent, and they will be successful in that task or that project or whatever it might be that felt unthinkable days before. But you have to, like, but again, I think as a parent, and now I'm seeing this, and I tried this yesterday, in Gabriel's, one of the like worksheets and things that he had to do, I followed sort of a very similar thing. Okay, let me show you how let me go back to the app, the 6-year-old in the app, and figure out, like, where did Miss Kilpatrick say this? Okay, now let me write. And I was like, tried to model that versus being like, what do you think you're supposed to do right now? Why can't you, like, which is usually, again, learn from me of what you're not supposed to do as I try these things, right? And then, like, what do we do now, right? And so, and I was like, shocked that all of a sudden he was like, well, mommy, this is what we, and it opened up it was a different experience for both of us. And so I do, we do, you do. It's something that I think we can easily remember as parents. We do this, we've done this since they were babies. We can do this in their learning, and just remembering that there is a sweet spot of learning for all kids, for all humans. And trying to stay in it is challenging, but we can help our kids do that, because that is when they're open, and that's when they're learning, and that's when they're actually, quite frankly, like learning at their maximum potential.
Mira, we're getting some parents reacting to you this morning. Melissa says, I wanted to share that my daughter is currently under reading level, and her teacher keeps asking me if we are reading. And of course I tell him yes every night. I've decided to stop stressing about it and know that as long as I'm doing my part, she will have her light bulb moment. I used to get so upset that she wasn't remembering sight words, and now I read with her and help her if she needs it. She's only in first grade. She's awesome in math, which is very interesting. She blows my mind with how quick she is in knowing her math concepts. Type A parents, just go with the flow.
Yeah. She's speaking my language, yes.
A lot of parents are identifying with you this morning. Mira, thank you so much for being with us, and thank you for another very thoughtful tip. This is going to be up on the
yes, I needed this one.
Prepared for Success website in just a little bit.
Yep.
So if you didn't catch everything, you can go back and listen to the expert again. You can rewind and listen to Mira again, or you can visit her website and you can walk through it.
That was good.
That was great, Keri. Thank you all so much.
All right, Mira joining us from Austin, Texas, from Prepared Parents, preparedforsuccess.org.
That's right.
Or preparedparents.org. Go and sign up and get a little sunshine in your email box every single morning. We were talking about you too, Mira, before we got on.
I heard.
You can't follow Mira's rule of trying to, get up and
that's if you need to stay out of if you are feeling stress and anxiety, stepping away from the news can help. I'm not following my own rule either, because I'm a workaholic and I like to know what's going on, but I'm trying. And so to each their own, right? We do what we can.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Bye, you guys. See you tomorrow.
That's a good battle plan.
Well, I think it's great too. And one thing I want to add too is that, we're in this for the long haul with our kids. And the last thing we want to do, I don't know about you, but some of my worst memories growing up is when my parents tried to help me with my homework or not. And it was horrible.
Yeah.
And oh my God, we want to create nurturing, nice memories with our kids, or at the very least, not horrible ones, because we're trying to help them with our homework.
Just do this worksheet.
Just do it. Suck it up. Get over it. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to relive that.
Little PTSD.
PTSD. Listen, I'm going to go can some spam. I'm going to go sort out my spam.
And I'm going to talk to Keri Gu from Great Schools, joining us from the West Coast. We're so glad that she's with us. Great Schools is like a tremendous resource. I've actually been talking about how I use Great Schools with my own babies all the time, but I'm so excited. She is the Vice President of External Affairs. Keri, where are you? I know you're on the West Coast. Are you in California right now? Where are you right now?
Actually, Keri, I am on the East Coast. I'm in the DC area. So I work remotely. So Great Schools is based in Oakland, California. I used to live there. Due to family changes, we moved back to the East Coast. And so I'm outside of DC.
We've got to be on West Coast time. Oh my God.
I could do it. I would do it for you, but I am on the East Coast. It's much easier. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, and so first things first. You have a bunch of kids in that house.
Yeah.
As a mama, we're going to get to Great Schools. Great Schools is wonderful, but how are you doing as a soldier in this fight right now? How are things in your house?
Yeah, so I have 4 kids. I have one in college, one in high school, one in middle school, and one in elementary school. I call it home super school. We are doing here. It is kind of crazy every day. The 3 older kids, I have 3 older girls, and they are kind of managing their work and their time pretty well. My oldest, who actually goes to college very close to you, down the street, had abruptly had to end her freshman year or move her freshman year back to her childhood bedroom and do her online classes. So, it kind of changed the dynamics of the teenage girls in the house, which is interesting. And
You're not getting away with that one. So we're always talking about, we've got 5 boys from 6 to 12. So different dynamic. Everybody is, experiencing this in different ways, and the teenage girl dynamic has to be very unique. How is that going, girl?
I mean, in one sense, it's nice because they have to live together and work together and cooperate, which they do sometimes, and they're learning to, I kind of like when we go on a family vacation and everyone has to be together. It takes a few days. It's taken a few weeks, really, but it's nice to see them kind of have fun together. It does get loud sometimes. I was actually just reading a grade school's newsletter about sibling rivalry. I'm like, oh my God, I need to read this. I need to figure this out because we're having a little bit of that, because, they're all doing their schoolwork right now. And one says, well, I used to be able to do that in, no time. And, why is it taking you? I'm like, oh God. So it's been it can be intense at times, it can be loud at times, but it can be lovely at times.
Wow. Well, and God bless your youngest, your little boy. That's a lot of girl power. But you know what? He's going to grow up to be an incredible man. This experience give him something unique.
That's what everybody tells me. Everyone says he's going to be the best boyfriend, or he's going to be the best friend to women. He's going to, and he will say, "Whose mascara is that?" I'm like, all right, he knows what mascara is. So, but he's 8 in 2nd grade, and I have to say, I so appreciated what Mira just said, because I've been having those problems, because he's the one I do really have to focus on and homeschool, and that takes time, right? And we are getting to those points where I'm forgetting things that I should know and being reminded, but also just trying to modulate what the work is that he should be doing, where that sweet spot is. That was such valuable advice, because we are having those frustrating moments, and I'm trying to reel back my frustration and do the right parenting thing, which is really hard when you're working and you've got the teenage girls and the dog starts barking. You're like, okay, can I model this? Can I do that? But that was such great advice. I'm going to use that today.
Really important, that's what we've kind of learned in these conversations on NPU Live, is that even some of the most incredible experts, you being one of them, we have, we're so blessed to have access and to provide this platform for folks to, ask the experts, what should I be doing? Am I crazy for feeling this way? But also having experts talking about their own struggle, saying I'm in this every single day. I come up with these contexts or these concepts, and I develop these, and I try to help parents, and then I'm finding the dynamic in my own household when you actually go to implement them. It's not easy. It's really tough some days. It's really difficult. So
yeah, I know. Even having all of those tips and tricks kind of at your fingertips, and where to find them, and we're lucky because parents are being overwhelmed by information, and we kind of know how to parse it through. And even, it's hard for us, right? So can you imagine?
And that's why I love grade schools. I got to tell you, because in the first couple of weeks of the pandemic, it was radio silence from the schools for me,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Same.
Massachusetts. And frankly, it's ongoing in Massachusetts and across the country in terms of the level of engagement and resources being provided for parents. And that's why grade schools was a tremendous resource for me. I've actually, in telling my own story in the media and other outlets, talking about how I was so blessed to know that grade schools was there, because my little 1st grader was really upset for a number of reasons. There's a special love between a 1st grade boy and his beautiful 1st grade teacher.
Mm-hmm.
That relationship is something else, and so he's mourning the loss of one of his best friends, his 1st grade teacher. And he was finally spelling words were a real fight in our house. Every week we're going over our sight words, our spelling words, our vocabulary words. We had kind of a structure around that. He was not feeling so confident, and then he was building his confidence. And every night we had, we were going through them. It was like a really special thing to, get to Friday where we're going to take the test, and how it was a triumph, and that kind of shut down because we had no more spelling words. And I'm looking at, my baby, my youngest, who's like, I don't have any spelling words. I don't have anything to learn. And I knew I could turn to grade school. So I went on the grade school's website, and he had Prodigy Math. So math was good. I felt like we were good with math, but spelling words were there, and sight words were there, and lists were there. And we downloaded them, and it was all so familiar to him, and it gave him his sparkle and his confidence back that, this was something so familiar. And I didn't know what words, honestly, it was so easy for me to go to first grade and be like, okay, at least I have confidence that this is where I can get these resources, because I'm a parent. I have no idea where to get first grade sight words. I would be Googling around and not knowing what I was getting. But grade schools was there for me in that moment.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, it was wonderful. And that is one of the ways that you guys stepped up. So talk to me about grade schools, what it looks like pre-COVID, and what you guys are doing now.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I mean, so grade schools, we've been around for over 20 years. We were started by a guy named Bill Jackson, who kind of was looking around at schools. He had a young family, and he was trying to figure out, how do I figure out where my children will go to school eventually? And I think I'm not sure if he was moving at the time, but he just, what he saw was a lack of information about schools. And so he started this website, greatschools.org, by going school to school in the Bay Area of California and getting information school by school. Eventually, he was able to the organization was able to bring in data from every single state. So information about how schools are performing, and put that up for parents. So we are designing this for parents, so parents can go and look at kind of how a school is serving kids, so that they can make decisions, they can work in their community if they're going, want to, don't like what they see and they want to improve a school and work together to improve a school. And so now we are nationwide. We have a profile for every single school in the nation. And we have multiple ways of looking at school quality for each school, so parents can really, dig in and get to understand the information. We do it in a way that gives those numbers context, like, what does this mean? What do I do with it? But we also, we know that kind of the parents' job in finding educational opportunities for kids doesn't end once, their child walks into those school doors. You need to also help support parents in making that connection between home and school as their child continues their learning journey. And so we also have parenting support and guidance and those lists like you're talking about. And so we do that at a grade-based level. And so what we've done during this crisis, I mean, at the moment kind of we saw what was about to happen and schools starting to close across the nation, we said, okay, we need to organize this because parents are now going to are looking for materials like you were. Schools closed. We're not quite sure what to do. We haven't gotten materials from the school yet. And so we have a page. If you go on greatschools.org, you'll see a yellow bar. You can get straight to our page for COVID-19 support. And it's all organized in grade-based toolkits. So you can find those vocabulary lists. You can find those worksheets that you can print out, and makes it easier. If you have a little kid, sometimes it's hard to do the online stuff all the time. You can print out these standard design worksheets. And we've seen parents come to our site and really, they need this information. Our site traffic has doubled. Our worksheet downloads is over 1 million, you know, in a time when it would be a couple 100,000. So parents are really needing this information, and everything is designed for parents. And you said, you know, like you can go and Google this stuff, or you know, this information kind of comes at you and it becomes overwhelming. And what I would say to parents is look for the information that's designed for parents to figure out how to use it. Because a lot of the educational websites have been opening up, but they're usually made for teachers or people kind of professionals in education. And it's great if you can kind of navigate and pull some stuff out of that. But what we've tried to do is design this for parents so they can understand how to use it, make it simple and easy, but make it, you know, targeted to what they need.
And that's what's been so important. And just going back to what you said earlier about the data being there and having it really open and accessible to parents. Mm-hmm. In pre-COVID days, we use Great Schools as an organizing tool because it's a very easy way to go on and be able to compare schools and to look at the things that are truly important to parents. There are a couple of other metrics that we also add in there, but I think overall, what we see parent organizations across the country, and we encourage them to use Great Schools for, is really to help empower them, take a lot of what they're seeing in the neighborhood level and take their anecdote to the next level so that they're actually empowered with data, and they know they can see the disparities, they can see the differences by zip code, they can see how their school is performing or not performing, so that they can go to the principal and march on the boss, as we do here in Massachusetts, and say, hey, you know, we're noticing a trend that this school, you know, is in a lot of trouble. What can we do to help advocate so that you get the resources you need to turn this around? It's been an incredible tool. Frankly, when we first started Massachusetts Parents United, we used to just try to do this on our own and figure out this data and go to the DESE website and all of this stuff. It's intense. It uses language that we find, you know, tries to exclude us from the conversation. We don't know if that's intentional or not, but it is what it is. It's not always accessible to get that information. So it's been very empowering for us to have this as a resource. But then in these times, you know, because, you know, parents have that relationship with you and they know that Great Schools is a place that, you know, is really focused on parents and helping to empower us. It's been incredible. That's really important in this moment. I want to just get your take on this. I'm sorry, our time is so short this morning. The hour goes by so quickly, but it's been interesting to watch the education policy conversation kind of open up and where parents are in that conversation. From our perspective, you know, we are now like flooded with resources and expectations around what we should be doing in our own homes. But so many of the conversations are happening, you know, outside, outside of our purview about what we're going to do and what people are going to expect from us and what we're going to be able to accomplish and all of these things. It's interesting in the moment. And you guys being a parent facing tool and organization, I'd love to get your perspective because, you know, all of these resources, if you do Google them up, you know, right now, you know, for COVID-19 support, a lot of it is teacher facing, but frankly, from our perspective, teachers really need to be supporting families and having reasonable expectations about what we're going to be able to get done and really be listening to parents in terms of what we don't understand and what we do need help with or what we do need more of. Instead of just assuming, it would just be so much better if we were included in the conversation while the ingredients are being gathered instead of after the cake is already baked and kind of put before us. So how do you guys see that?
Right. And you kind of wonder, like, is this the moment maybe that because parents are now on the front lines of teaching our kids and understanding where our kids are kind of at which level, you know, they're going back, if and when they go back to school, someday they will, you know, which level they'll be at and, you know, how can teachers then kind of take it from there? Parents need to be part of that conversation. You're absolutely right. And I think being able to have that information, it gives you a tool, gives you a starting point, the information about kind of how schools are performing at multiple different levels. Like you want to know if you're in a high school, kind of what the college readiness, you know, indicators look like. You want to be able to see proficiency scores, you know, especially at those younger levels. You want to be able to see our kids improving over time. You want to be able to see also broken down by different student groups. How are kids who look like mine are performing, you know, and what does that mean for how my kid will be served in this school? And then take that information and use it to have conversations, you know, catalyze conversations with parents, other parents, get together with, you know, have those tough conversations at school and say, look, I see what's happening here. Now I also see what's going on with my child in a more intimate way that I wasn't able, and I want to be part of this conversation. I think that's important. I think you guys had Lakeisha Young from Oakland Reach on the other day, and I love the story that she has about, you know, she's got these incredible moms who go out in Oakland and they stand in front of schools with the data, with the like grade schools ratings, and they say, you know, take a look at this. And, you know, they said they had one mom who said, should I even send my child into that school today? Mm-hmm. And, you know, the answer is yes, but let's work together to kind of figure out, how do we improve this? How do we make this better for your child and all of our children, and use those numbers, that information and the context around that, what that means as a starting point. And I think in time of, you know, COVID-19, parents are going to start to look at different ways of what, you know, how a school is going to serve their child, you know, what kind of resources the school is going to provide. How are the teachers going to be teaching when schools are closed? Those are some of the things we're looking at, and how do we bring that information in, maybe at a district level, to help parents understand that too.
Well, you guys are just such an important tool. We appreciate all of your work and really looking forward, you know, to continuing, you know, this partnership, not only with the National Parents Union, Massachusetts Parents United, but all of our organizations throughout the National Parents Union who are now being empowered, finding you as a tool and a resource, not just for their own kids, but really to fight for equity and to demand what our kids really need. So, Keri, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks, Keri. Thanks for the work you do. Thank you.
Keri Boo from Great Schools joining us from Washington, D.C. So grateful to have her with us, and grateful for Great Schools. Now we welcome a brother, you know, a member of the National Parents Council, an advisor, you know, a guy who is just extraordinary in all kinds of ways, a frequent guest on this broadcast because we need his knowledge and his wisdom. Nehemiah Frank joining us from Oklahoma. How are you, my friend? How are things going?
I'm well. How are you doing, Keri?
Oh, good. I'm so sorry for making you wait so long, but I'm anxious to have this conversation with you about catching up with what's happening in Oklahoma, what's happening with you. A tremendous article in the 74 about your personal story and what you're seeing. Something that, you know, we discussed here on the air, but so good to see your voice and your story again lifted up. You know, you have an extraordinary reach with the Black Wall Street Times, but, you know, I love the honesty, the authenticity that you're sharing about the story that you're going through right now. You're building with your nephew, and how is he doing, and how's the progress?
Yeah, so he's doing really well. The more and more I work with him, the faster he seems to progress. I noticed that his speech has improved tremendously. And the speech pathologist told me that, you know, the more I work with him, the better his speech will become. So he's doing really well. I'm really proud of him. And his dad's proud of him too.
What does that tell you about the future as you start to think about, well, now I'm going to have to give this baby back to the public schools at some point? Like,
yeah, well, I know that, you know, the school that he's going to, they have been really good about reaching across the aisle to the parents and trying to get the parents to engage. The school is fairly new, so they're still kind of developing their culture on how they want to teach and how they want to interact as a community-based school. So, but I do think the future is bright for Caillou. I hope it's bright for other parents and their kids as well. But I've definitely learned that, you know, we really have to be hands-on at home with our kids. Unfortunately, everybody can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, because people are just out there, in the struggle, trying to hold on to what they have in the best of times. And now giving this unprecedented challenge, it's tough. But,
Right.
by telling the stories, we are learning more and more. And the Black Wall Street Times is doing that on a daily basis. It's a must read for me now, just
Oh,
to
that's awesome.
see the perspective is so fresh and so real and so raw and authentic, even when it hurts. It's just critical reading for me now. And the work you're doing is just extraordinary, again, rising to the occasion for your community and frankly, for across the nation, your audience just building and building. But, Nehemiah, I wanted to bring you on to talk about a piece that just really hit me between the eyes. We've been trying to do our part to have very real and very frank conversations with parents about what they're seeing with their kids.
Right. Yeah.
Obviously a lot of folks concerned about our younger kids, but our older children too, right now, beyond academics, really struggling emotionally with the grief and the loss. So can you talk to us a little bit about what you found there and what the struggle looks like from your perspective?
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. Having difficult conversations, it's important for all of us, no matter what community, zip code you come from. Cyberbullying is real. Social distancing exhaustion is real. And according to the CDC, from 1999, teen suicide has actually increased by 35%, which is a lot.
Something that people have been focusing on, pre-COVID-19, saying, cyberbullying. We see all of this behavior, and there's been some schools that have been really trying to focus on it. There have been laws passed, but this COVID-19 thing just adds a whole new level and another dynamic to this that is really pushing.
Right, absolutely. In Oklahoma, we unfortunately have lost 2 teens, not to COVID-19, but just to the stress around it. We have to talk to our kids. We need to know what's going on with them. And, you want to be able to have open conversations, and sometimes you miss it. There was a kid in California. The mom described her daughter as, extremely outgoing. They had a pretty close relationship. The daughter, she was academically successful, had lots of friends, and, she cracked. She ended up taking her own life during COVID. And the mom thinks it had a lot to do with, the social distancing. But I mean, it could have had also, something to do with cyberbullying, because according to Dr. Corey Cross from Children's Hospital in Los Angeles, COVID-19 actually is increasing the teen suicide rate in the United States.
And it actually makes sense, right? Our kids are spending more and more time online.
Right.
With parents really under the gun, concerned about job loss, hanging on to a job, all of, everything that's happening. We know our kids are supposed to be online. Our older kids, some of maybe the monitoring is not, what it should be. I mean, we're doing the best that we can. We cannot be on top of them 24/7. It's not good to be on top of them 24/7. But with this obvious, it makes sense that, we'd have increased cyberbullying happening if we're having increased screen time and online activity with our teens.
Yeah, they can't go to the playground or go to the beaches or the park, so they can't hang out with their friends. They're going to be online because they're trying to distract themselves.
And we learned about this that happens online, where it's text messaging, it's Facebook Messenger, it's Instagram, private messaging, all of these things, WhatsApp, all of these ways that our teenagers, our kids are, frankly, our younger kids are interacting with each other. If you're not monitoring, you may not know that your teen is being bullied. You may not know.
Right. Absolutely.
And it can be a brutal time, on top of the fact that you may not have that interaction with your friends, the folks that aren't bullying you because of social distancing and everything else that's happening. So Nehemiah, have in your research and kind of in your study of this, as you dive into these stories and whatnot, have you come across, any advice in terms of what parents should do, what we should be looking for, and how we can take this on?
Right. So I have some recommendations from the CDC, which is a great source that, we should all definitely be looking at from day to day if we have access. One of them is recognize that your kid has anxiety, and, tell your kid that it's normal. So, to thoroughly explaining to your kids that, hey, I have a little bit anxiety, you might have some, we all kind of have it, we're all kind of dealing with it, and explain to your kid what anxiety actually is. It's important to be open and honest and truthful, so your kid knows what they're dealing with and they can be able to move, through this difficult process, mentally healthy. Another one is create distractions. So the distraction doesn't always have to be, here's a computer, here's a phone, go make yourself busy. You could cook meals together. Earlier, I heard you guys talking about chores. Kids should be doing chores. Parents, you don't have to do everything. Even a 2-year-old could pick up trash, and if it's, a 4-year-old could take out the trash. You could sweep leaves, you could do gardening if you have access to that. And then another one is find new ways to connect with your kids, and your kids can also find new ways to connect with their friends. I know my friends and I, we hop on this app called House Party, which is super cool. You can play games on there, and you can put a lot of kids, a lot of folks on there. It's actually a lot less difficult to operate than Zoom. Another one is focus on, teach your kids to focus on themselves. They could find something that they really like to do by themselves at home. Another one is feel your feelings. Tell kids it's okay to feel their feelings. If they're feeling upset, teach them how to be able to verbalize, hey, I'm feeling upset because of XYZ. That is a way.
These are really important. And honestly, Nehemiah, these are things we talk about every day. It's just
right.
Being mindful about it. Like what this all kind of ties into for me is, we're always talking with Mira Brown from Prepared Parents about mattering and how important the idea of mattering is for our kids and frankly for adults too. Having that undivided attention where somebody feels like they're important and they matter. So whether or not, if somebody's feeling their feelings, don't just dismiss them and say, oh, don't feel mad, don't feel sad, don't feel upset because you're going through this, but saying, you know what, I understand that you have those big feelings. And if you need to feel those feelings before we can have a conversation or get over that or move past it, that's okay. Because you know how it feels as a grown-up, Nehemiah. Like if somebody, I'm always teasing Tim, the best way to get me to not calm down is to tell me to calm down, right? That's a joke, but like that is a thing too. Like if we're feeling our feelings, we try to stuff them down. They're not gonna go away. They're gonna manifest in some other way. And we don't want it to come to a point where, our kids who are still learning how to process these big feelings don't know what to do, and they feel like it's never going to feel any better. So unfortunately, they're taking a permanent solution to a very temporary problem or a temporary feeling. And as parents, we've got to be on the lookout for that. Maybe being more understanding about big feelings right now, because when you are in high school, Nehemiah, I don't know if you remember, but when I was a teenager, I thought like, this is it. This is my whole life. Nothing is going to be better than this. Nothing is going to be worse than this. Everything that happens is so important. It's the most important thing that's ever going to happen in my life.
Right.
It's total crap, right? It's not your whole life, but it feels that way. And if we can kind of draw on our own memory and have some compassion and say, you know what, I remember when it felt like that, or I felt feelings that I didn't know what to do, we can help our kids through these moments.
Right, absolutely. During social isolation, if your kid is upset, they can't just go out, run to the park or hang out with their friends to cope with it or to release their stress, through soccer or some kind of sport. So they're like a volcano. They will explode and, the top is still on the kettle. So it's going to be a disaster if you don't, acknowledge your kids' feelings.
Let them feel their feelings, let them know they matter, get them outside of their own heads a little bit. Like all of this is common sense, but we've got to be intentional about it.
Absolutely.
Nehemiah, we love you. We're so happy to see your face. Thank you for covering these stories that aren't being talked about. You are leading a national conversation, and then it's such a beautiful thing to watch other folks follow. You know, once you forge the way and say, this is an important story that we talk about, you know, we're seeing that now reflected in other outlets that are looking to you for leadership. So it's
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for all of your effort and everything you're doing for our families across the country.
See you later, man.
Yeah, Nehemiah, so good to talk with you this morning. So good to have you with us. Tim joining us once again. How are you?
I'm great.
Wonderful. So we want to, I have to end this broadcast today with a very special hello to someone I love very dearly, and that is my baby, David, who is watching today.
It's pretty awesome.
Hi, David. Good morning to you, buddy. You're going to have a great day.
That's right.
Yeah. I got to remember, you know, I get president of the National Parents Union, blah, blah, blah. But most important.
Your mom first.
Yeah, I'm David's mom. And that's the most important thing
to
me. And I love him with all my heart. So I love you, David. I love Miles, and I love Matthew. And I hope you three have a great day. And everybody across the country, I hope you do too.
Have a great day, guys. Thanks again.
Bye.